This video is sponsored by OBSBOT. In today's video, I'm gonna show you how to use SRT and NDI with the OBSBOT Talent switcher. Now, if you have never used SRT, SRT is actually awesome because this is a protocol that will allow you to send a feed from anywhere in the world actually and send it to a software. Could be OBS, could be vMix, could be any other software that takes SRT to someone else who's probably doing like something like a remote production. So for example, something's covering an event in a remote area where everything has to be kind of mobile, and they have the talent and they want to be able to send that signal back to someone who's in the US and you are maybe personally I'm in Canada, someone who's in Canada using OBS sitting in their office and be able to get that signal through SRT and actually add some other cool stuff like graphics and stuff like that. Run a full production using full network and bandwidth and everything on the good stuff on a computer in an office. That's gonna be possible with SRT. Now with NDI, it's gonna be a little different because NDI is gonna require you to be on the same network. So this is gonna be useful if someone was maybe covering an event in the same venue where they are all connected on the same network infrastructure, but they're not in the same room. So maybe they're sitting in a different, kind of production room and they want to be able to send signal over network. That's where NDI is going to be super useful. And that's how NDI works. So big difference between NDI and SRT. Again, SRT, you can send video over network from anywhere, and NDI, you can send video over network, but you have to be connected on the same network. The person receiving the feed and the person sending the feed, they have to be on the same network. So we're not gonna take much time today. We're gonna be using OBSBOT Talent switcher, and I'm gonna show you how to do both SRT and NDI as I just said. So let's not take much time. Let's get right into it. What is going on, guys? Samla production tips and tools here, helping you master live streaming. So by the way, because I'm not gonna go through all the features and everything that the OBSBOT Talent has to offer, but if you are interested to know more, because this little device can do more than what you're actually going to see now, I'm gonna link down below a full walkthrough video that I did so you guys can actually go ahead and check it out. But other than that, we're gonna go ahead and actually get started with SRT before we get to NDI. So when it comes to SRT, again, as I just said, we are going to assume, again, I'm sitting in my office, but we are going to assume that I was in the field, outdoors, away from home, okay? And what I did with the OBSBOT Talent, actually, you can connect either to Ethernet, Wi-Fi, or cellular. Now, with cellular, you're gonna need a little dongle, a little USB dongle. You're gonna connect into the OBSBOT Talent, you're gonna be able to access network. So what I did, instead of connecting to my home network, I actually connected to my cell phone's cellular data, okay? Because SRT is going to be involving some IP addresses and everything. So I wanna make sure the OBSBOT Talent is not connected on the same network as my computer, okay? I'm using my cell phone's data, and you're gonna see once we start talking about IP addresses, you're gonna see why I'm actually doing that. Okay, another thing, we're gonna be using OBS, of course. So I'm gonna be sending a signal from the talent to OBS wirelessly. And again, this can be done from anywhere in the world as long as you have access to internet. Okay, so now we have the device on, the talent is on. What I'm gonna do, just to make sure you guys can see, I'm gonna scroll down and go to settings, and I'm gonna go to network, and I'm gonna show you how I'm actually connected. So right now I am connected to Wi-Fi, but I'm gonna disconnect from my home Wi-Fi, and I'm going to actually connect to my iPhone. So as you can see, I'm connected to my iPhone, which is iPhone 80, whatever, and we should be good. So I'm disconnected from my home Wi-Fi, and we should be good. Okay, so next up, we're gonna go ahead and actually go to our computer. The first thing, we want to make sure we have OBS open. So right now I have OBS open, and the next thing, we're gonna get some few IP addresses that we're gonna need for this operation. Okay, the first IP address, you need to get your actual IP address, the IP address of the computer of the person who's gonna be receiving the feed from the talent. All right, so to do that, you want to go ahead and, assuming you were using Windows, you're gonna go ahead and type command prompt. Just type in command. It's gonna show up some little application, window application is going to show up. And what you need to do, click on it, and then you wanna make sure you hit IP config. You type IP config in there, and then boom, hit enter. And as you can see, you're gonna get some suggestions here. And what you're looking for, you are looking for two main addresses. The first one is the IPv4, which is your computer's IP address, the computer that we're using right now. And in my case, it's gonna be 192.168.2.12. Okay. Another thing is you need to get what they call default gateway. So default gateway is gonna be your router's IP address, and that's, in my case, it's gonna be 192.168.2.1. Okay, I'm gonna show you why we need that. So you need to take those two IP addresses and put them somewhere in a note document. Okay, and then another thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go to Google, and what you need to do is you need to type what's my public IP address. So you need to type in Google what's my public IP address. Okay, so you're gonna click to that. The first page is gonna show up. It's called whatismyip.com. You wanna go ahead and click to it, and once you click to it, the first one is gonna show up. It's gonna be my public IPv4. That's the one that you need. Okay, again, you wanna go ahead and copy it and then save it somewhere in the same note document. Now, this is crucial. You should not show your public IP address. Somehow, for people who know about internet security, it's not good. Mine, I'm gonna hide it, so you're not gonna be able to see it, but you should be able to find it through this. So once we're done, we're gonna go ahead and close everything. The next thing, because the protocol or the type of SRT, which is SRT caller, actually that's what it's called, the Talent uses, really requires all this configuration. So bear with me, okay? So the next thing we're going to do, we are going to do what we call port forwarding from our router. Okay, so what's gonna happen, actually what's happening is, what we're trying to do is, someone is streaming an event from downtown or from the US and sending to me in Canada. They are sending that signal to me. And when it gets to me, it's gonna go through my internet router first, right? Because my router is through my public IP address. So when it gets to my router has to forward. So it gets the signal and it has to forward it to the right devices, because my router has my computer connected to it, has my phone connected, it has my TV connected to it. So it needs to know where it's gonna forward that signal, and that's what we're going to set up. So this is where the first IP address comes in, which is our router's IP address, which was 192.168.2.1. All right, so you need to type that in your browser, and then it should actually take you to your router's settings page. All right, so what I need to do is you need to go to advanced tools and settings, and once you get there, of course you may have to log in. Well, usually when you get to your router's settings and stuff like that, you're gonna have to log in. Mine is already logged in because I was there. What you need to do, so you go to advanced settings, and then we're gonna go where it says port forwarding. Okay, so which is gonna be here, so you should have it. So I'm gonna go ahead and click port forwarding, and then what you need to do is, again, I have created mine already, which is gonna be the one we're gonna be using. If this is the first time, what you need to do, you need to go here where it says create a new rule. You want to make sure you name it, so you can name it Talent 2, and then protocol, you can go ahead and choose UDP. And then for port, you need to choose a port that's not being used already. So as you can see, I have some ports that are actually being used. I have 5001, 4000, 5005. So you can go ahead and pick something like 4500 or whatever. I used 4000 in this one, which is going to be the one we're going to be using. But in your case, you can use maybe 4005, and then 4005, same thing. So you have internal port and an external port. You can type the same thing. And then here, this is crucial. So this is where the local IP address, this is where you're gonna type in the computer's IP address. Now, if you know your sometimes your computer's name is going to show up here, like mine is this one. But if you don't know your computer's name, we need to go to the IP address that we took from the prompt command, which in my case was 168. So basically you would leave this empty, and then you would go here and it would be 192, and then here it would be 168, and here it would be 2, and then it would be 12. So you can do that, and once you're done, you have everything ready. All you need to do is you're gonna go ahead and actually hit create. So I can go here and hit create and then hit save. Again, once you hit save, everything should be good and you can close. Okay, but again, I already have one recreated, which is this one, the Talent 4000 that I created before. So that's the one that I'm gonna be using. I like the port 4000, just works perfectly. It's a round number. Okay, but again, I just showed you this Talent 2 is another one that we just created. I just wanted you guys to see how it works. All right, so if I want, I can actually go ahead and delete it because I don't need it. Okay, so we're gonna be using again this one, which is Talent 4000. This is our external port, internal port, external port 4000, and it's routed to my desktop. Once you're done, again, hit save. Mine I have already saved, and then we can actually leave this page, no problem. So next up, we're gonna go now to the Talent to our device. All right, and we're gonna set up everything, our stream. Okay, so what we need to do now, we need to just click anywhere, and we need to go to this hamburger menu. We need to go to settings. The first thing, we need to set up our encoder because this is where everything is gonna start. Okay, we need to define our bit rate, how much bit rate we want to send, and of course, depending on our network, we need to send something that we can actually support and all the good stuff. So we're gonna go to encode, and as you can see, I'm already using encode 1. We have 2 encoders in here. So as you can see, because I'm already using my encode 1 to record this video, so I'm gonna go to encode 2. This is gonna be the one that I'm using. So I have multiple settings in here, but for the sake of this video, I'm gonna show you how to create your own, because you need to know how to create your own every time you need to use this kind of stuff, right? Depending on your bandwidth and everything. So we're gonna go and click add, and then we're gonna go here where it says program. Again, if you want to send just one HDMI, or I mean like one feed, you can choose HDMI 1, HDMI 2, or webcam 1 or webcam 2. However, for us, you want to send, I mean, we're going to be sending the program. All right. Another thing, we need to choose the codec. Now, if you're doing any sort of SRT, it's always advised to use H.265 because it's going to allow you to send a high quality video without using that much of bandwidth, or without requiring that much of your internet bandwidth compared to H.264. So H.265, this is what I recommend for SRT. For resolution, we're gonna be using 1080p. Frame rate, we're gonna be using 30 frames per second. If we're using, maybe if you were doing some sort of sports, you probably wanna do 60 frames per second. Now for video bit rate, the lowest, not the lowest, but yeah, the lowest that kind of looks good in my opinion, it's actually 2500 kbps, so 2.5 megabits per second. It's really low, okay, but if you're streaming over cellular network, you probably don't have that much bandwidth available, so you want to make sure you actually go as low as possible, something low that will give you good quality. Now if you have a little bit of more bandwidth, maybe using Wi-Fi or something else that's giving you more bandwidth, you can actually go ahead and test your internet speed. If you want to, you can go to somewhere like 6 megabits per second, 7 megabits per second, 6, 4.5. So you just want to play depending on your internet speed, and don't send too much if you don't have much available. For audio, again, I can leave it at 96 for audio bit rate. Again, you don't want to use the highest, maybe. You can try 128, but 96 worked well for me. And then encode level, you can leave it to main or high, doesn't matter. Bit rate, you want to make sure you actually keep it to CBR, and that keeps it consistent. Once you're done, again, you can play with these settings. Everything else here, really, I don't touch any, to anything else here. Hit add. As you can see, as soon as I hit add, it says the encoder already exists. but if it didn't exist, we'll just save it. Okay, the reason why it says exist, because if you can see this one right here, it's exactly the same thing. As you can see, it's H265 1080p 30 frames per second 2.5 megabits per second. So it didn't want to create exactly the same thing, so that's why it says it already exists. Okay, but if you didn't have it, it would actually save and it will be added to the list of what we have here. All right, so you want to make sure you choose the one you just created and then leave. And again, memorize which encoder that you're going to be using. Okay, we're going to be using encode number 2, encoder or encode number 2. All right, so next up, we're going to go to stream. This is where we're going to set up our SRT. So when you start, as you can see, there's nothing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to under stream and I'm going to hit add server, and I'm going to go ahead and click SRT. And then under SRT, I need to add a few things here. The first thing, for SRT name, by default is going to be SRT caller. I don't need to do anything here. For encode, we're going to be using encode. We're going to click here. As you can see, I have encode 1, which I'm using to record, and the frame rate, you can see that it's completely different. The frame rate is the same, but the bit rate is different. I'm recording at 16 megabits per second. So I want to make sure I choose encode number 2, because that's where we have our settings. We have program H265 1080p 30 frames per second 2.5 megabits per second. So that's the one that I need to be actually sending over SRT. Now, when we go to address, remember, for address, there was a public IP address. So that's the one we're going to be using. Again, you have to hide it, but this one, you need to go here and actually type it. Okay. All right. So once we're done with the public IP address, what we need to do is we're going to go ahead and go here where it says port. Now we're going to go enter our port number, and remember our port number back in the forwarding settings we did, it was 4000. So we're going to go ahead and type in 4000. And stream ID, you can leave it the way it is, and latency, I just leave it at 120 milliseconds. Now, if your internet is super bad, you can increase your latency. You're probably gonna help a little bit with, you know, the signal, because if the signal is delayed, some systems will actually use that time to kind of catch up and make sure, you know, if there are any packets, you know, kind of lost in the way, and they would just go back and get those packets to make sure they, you know, the signal looks good, right? But for now, I can leave it at 120 milliseconds, and everything else, you leave it the way it is. Stream ID is optional. You don't have to add anything there. And once you're done, I will actually go ahead and click test, just to make sure that we have enough bandwidth available. Okay. So sometimes it's gonna say failed. Okay, and it's okay, don't worry about it if it says failed. Just make sure. So once you're done, just leave the stream settings, and as you can see, our SRT caller is set. As you can see, it says SRT, and then it's gonna give us our public IP address / the port number. So once you have that, you know that actually it's ready to go. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and leave the stream settings, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back to my network settings just to make sure I didn't go back to my home network, because that's the problem. It keeps going back to my home network, and I want to make sure I'm actually connected to my phone's network. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit forget, so it doesn't go back there by default, because if it goes there, it's gonna mess up on my settings. So I want to avoid that. All right, so now I'm connected back to my cell phone. Sometimes it does that, especially when you are home, but if you're not home, it's not gonna happen. So I can go back to my stream, and I can go back to SRT, and I can just do a quick test to see if I have some sort of bandwidth that I'm actually getting from my phone. Again, as you can see, sometimes it's gonna say failed, but don't worry. If you are sure that everything is connected, it should be good. Now, the next thing we have to do now, we have to set up OBS, because OBS is gonna be the one receiving the signal. Now, you can do this with vMix or any other software that is actually able to receive an SRT signal with no problem. So I'm gonna go back to OBS, and what we need to do is I'm gonna hit the plus sign, and I'm gonna create a new scene. I'm gonna call it SRT Talent. I'm gonna hit OK, and then here I'm gonna hit the plus sign, and then I'm gonna go ahead and create a new media source, and then I can call it SRT listener. again, the way it works, the talent is using SRT caller. All right, so it's the caller, and then OBS has to be the listener. If talent was the listener, OBS would have to be the caller. All right, so for now, OBS is gonna be a listener. So you wanna make sure once you get here, you wanna make sure you uncheck local file. Basically, I actually uncheck everything. Every time I do SRT, I just uncheck everything, okay? Now, here in input, we have a specific link that we have to put in here, and I'm gonna leave it down below. But usually there's another page about SRT with OBS that will give you what you have to input for SRT listener. So it's SRT ///127. I mean, the IP address, your local IP address, not the public IP address, // and then you're gonna put your port number that we set up in port forwarding, and then $mode equals listener. So I'm gonna leave this link down below. All you gotta do is you have to replace your local IP address and the port number you're gonna have created in your router settings. Okay, so I already have the link. I'm just gonna copy it on a document here, and I'm gonna go back to OBS. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna hit paste the link. Okay, again, you have to change these two values here. Okay, so you need to change the port number. Remember, it was 4000, and then our IP address. Now this is gonna be the local IP address, the local IP address of our computer, which is 192.168.1.2.12. okay, and then everything else you leave it the way it is. You don't have to mess up with anything, and just hit OK. All right, so now we should be good. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go to talent. I'm gonna hit this stream button here, and then it's gonna bring up all this good stuff here, and I'm gonna go to SRT caller, and I'm gonna hit connect, and then we're gonna wait and see what happens. Usually when it happens, you're gonna see it's gonna show the bandwidth here, the sending. As you can see, it says sending 2.9 ish, around 3 megabits per second. So as soon as you start streaming on the device, really, as you can see, we have a signal in OBS and everything looks good. So you can see I can do this, the delay is really actually, the delay is not bad actually. It's like almost in real time. Remember, we applied 120 milliseconds delay, and as you can see, it works, no problem. We also have audio. As we're streaming with audio, you can see SRT usually is gonna bring in audio. Again, this is happening on my cellular, over my cellular network, so which means I'm not connected locally to this computer. We're not sharing the same network, which means anyone can be anywhere in the world and be able to stream their feed back to OBS. So the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna show you how to do exactly the same thing, but this time we're gonna be using NDI, which means we're gonna be connected on the same network. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually end the stream. I'm just gonna go to SRT and hit disconnect and hit stop, and the signal should stop now. And what we're gonna do now, because NDI does not involve some IP addresses and stuff like that, this is gonna be straightforward. So if you're using a software other than OBS, chances are it's gonna come with the ability to add an NDI source. Like if you're using vMix, you should know how to add. You can just simply add an NDI input easily. Now with OBS, you're gonna need to install a plugin that will allow you to accept NDI input, and I'm gonna leave a link down below if you guys want to access it. If you don't have it, if you already have it, I have already mine installed, so you want to make sure you actually go ahead and follow. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna have to do, I'm gonna have to take my Ethernet cable. By the way, you could use Ethernet or you could use Wi-Fi. But if you use Ethernet, it's obviously gonna be more stable. So I'm gonna go ahead and connect my Ethernet cable into the talent. So as you can see, it's connected right now, and it should be the source of our network. I'm also gonna go ahead and turn off my hotspot from my cell phone, so you guys can have a full signal or can see a full Ethernet signal connected directly into the talent. And my computer, of course, is connected to the same network. In fact, I have a switch, and that's where everything, both my computer and the talent, they are actually connected on the same switch, which is awesome. Now we need to go to settings. Again, you can go to this quick menu here and then go to settings, and then we're gonna go to encode always. Now we're gonna be using encode number 2 because again encode number 1 is being used. Now you can choose whatever you want to send actually over NDI. So for me, I'm just gonna take the highest actually that we have here available, which is H264 1080p 30 frames per second. Let's say 10 megabits per second. Okay, so since I'm recording, I'm actually kind of limited, but again, you can go to encode and set up whatever you want, so don't worry about it. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and go to settings again, and then we're gonna go to stream, okay, and then we're gonna go to where it says NDI. So it should be, oh, I believe I deleted it. So sometimes you may delete it, okay, if you don't need it. But if you don't have it there, you can go click add server, and then we're gonna go ahead and click add NDI, of course. And then it's gonna ask you to name it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just name it Sam, and then hit save. Next, group name, you can keep it public. Encoding source, either you want to send HDMI 1, HDMI 2, webcam 1 or webcam 2, or you want to send program, you can do that. So in our case, we're gonna be sending program. Now program stream, as you can see, if I click to this, you can choose your codec, you can choose your resolution, you can choose your frame rate, and then your bit rate. For some reason it does not change, so it's gonna choose the bit rate for you, and then the profile you can change it, and bitrate mode you cannot change that. Okay, so this is the type of NDI that you're sending. Now transport mode, again, if you understand this sort of stuff, you understand networking and all the terms, you can actually go ahead and change this. But in my opinion, if you're not super familiar with this, TCP unique connection actually does work well. Now if you want to do multi connections, like you want to send to multiple devices at the same time, you can do TCP multi connection as well. But again, if you understand, you have more options here. For me, I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. It should work no problem. Okay, discovery server failover, again, these are options that you can choose if you understand this type of things. But if you want to keep it simple, you can leave it the way it is. And now you can do a quick test to test your network, just to see if you're gonna be able to put it off with, you know, the network and bandwidth they have available. And it's gonna do a quick test and say pass, no problem, and you are good to go. So once you're done, as you can see, we are good here. We can actually exit the stream menu. Okay, now we can go ahead and tap on screen and hit stream, the stream button, and I can go to NDI SAM right here. The one that we just connected is gonna show up here in our live stream export or configurations. All I need to do is just gonna click connect, and right now we should be sending some NDI signal. Now what we need to do is we need to go to OBS now, or any other software that can take NDI, and we can create a new source if you wanted to, new scene, and call it NDI or talent. But for now, we can just use the same one we used for SRT. I'm just gonna hide the SRT signal, and then we're gonna go under that scene, add a new source. And for now, you're gonna hit the plus sign. Once you have the plugin installed on OBS, it's gonna show up here. So it's gonna be add an NDI source. So I'm gonna go ahead and click NDI source. You can name it the way you want. For me, I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. Just leave it as NDI source and hit OK. So once you go here, if I go under this source name here, you should actually click to this little arrow going down. You should be able to see the signal coming in. Remember, we named it Sam, so as you can see, it's coming in as Sam. Click to wait, and as you can see, it's actually showing no problem. So because it's NDI, everything's over network, we're using Ethernet cable, so this is gonna be a juicy kind of signal. So as you can see, it looks good, no lag, everything looks really good, no problem. And then you have some settings here. Say WUV range has to do with color, I believe. So you can leave it partial or full. Again, for me, actually partial looks good. Color space, you can actually use 709. For me, looks good. 709 should be good. Latency mode, you can use normal, which is safe. But if you wanna kind of go to lower, it's a little unsafe. It's gonna depend on your network. You can actually go ahead and play with that. But everything else, really, you don't have to do much. You can just leave it the way it is and hit OK. And as you can see, we have a beautiful, good looking signal in OBS. All right. So again, this could be useful if I was maybe in a venue where I'm covering an event. Instead of sending HDMI signals and long cables, I can use NDI, connect everything on network, and then send a signal to someone who's sitting probably in on a different room, kind of producing the show and everything. This will be super useful. So guys, this is how you do it. Once you're done, you can actually stop streaming and it's gonna kill the signal. Again, this is gonna be applicable in any other software, including vMix or any other software that can actually take NDI. So this is how you do it, guys. If you have questions, let me know down below, either for SRT or NDI. If you actually want to see all the good stuff you can actually do with the OBSBOT Talent, I have another video showing you everything that you can do, because with Talent you can record, you can ISO record, you can stream to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can do vertical streaming on Instagram if you want to, or TikTok or YouTube Shorts. So you can do so many really juicy, cool stuff with this little device. So if you want to see my full walkthrough video, you want to make sure you check out this video right here. But other than that, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.